Ark Primal Nemesis, one of the super hard mods that we have in Ark Survival Ascended. So I tried to complete this in 100 days, and this is how it went. I spawned on a remote island. It was pretty void of life. This was good. This would give me a second to gather my bearings. I peacefully got to work to do some gathering, but quickly noticed there was no berry spawning, and I was getting hungry. I managed to kill myself a normal lystro, and then an alpha lystro. Then, using the alpha skin, I made myself my first bit of alpha hide armor. Finally, at the far side of the island, after so much searching, I found some bushes I could finally eat. I made the rest of my gear and crafted a primal spear in case things got a little bit sticky. There wasn't many dinos, but the ones I did find, they were killed. I actually just needed off this chunk of land, and a raft was my only option. I found a high-level turtle. The plan was to kill it, but this beast was eating spears until it literally digivolved into a porcupine. It then passed out. Because my spear was actually laced with narcotics, I tamed up a moss chop I had seen earlier and fought another turtle. And then with the hide, I crafted myself a raft. This journey was to be done in style, and one of the Primal Nemesis rafts gave me just that. I waited for my turtle to tame up, and once it was up, I gathered everyone on the boat and we set off. I needed a nice piece of remote land to call our base spot. As I was searching, I realized this was actually an epic start so far. I was feeling really confident. After visiting a few islands, I finally found a mid-sized one that I liked, and I immediately started killing any potential spawn points with multiple thatch foundations. The thought of a modded dino spawning in my base and eating my head had me a little bit panicked. I started plotting the base of my base. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah, good English, good English. Then I made some narcotics. My farm was set, and I had vanilla dinos and a base spot. Day 1 was a massive success, but now I needed some crystal. I set out to get some crystal at a spot that I knew, so this was kind of safe for me as I knew the way there, as it was a low-level area, or so I believed. On my way, I passed my first kaiju, a volcanic, but I wasn't getting distracted. I had a mission, and your boy was gonna keep to the plan. I arrived at the crystal spawn and harvested what I could carry. I had to be quick. Danger was actually everywhere. How was this a beginner zone? Immediately, I used my crystal to make an awesome spyglass, so now I could see everything. On my return to the base, I stopped by a small piece of land where I harvested some of the Nemesis ores. These would come in handy in the future. This little side quest for crystal was actually going to really pay off. I was halfway to my base when suddenly, something jumped out of the water and I got spooked. A vanilla Shastasaurus thought it was a good time to do a backflip. How nice of you. I arrived at the base and put my ores to smelting and tried to figure out what I needed for alpha kibble. I forced my turtle to poop her heart out till I could get enough fertilizer for my crops. Setting up some raw carrots for the alpha kibble, all I needed now was kinda like some vanilla eggs. I built up my base a little more, then I set out to find some obsidian. I went past Kaido Island and to a certified obsidian spawn and harvested what I could carry, making some structures with the excess materials for the base. I was traveling back to base, gliding over the water in my boat. Then an alpha elite Sigtus, this mofo hammered into my raft, shaking the very wood that I stood on, but I managed to skim away, only taking a single strike. Yes, I am a pro, only one strike, baby. The next few days were spent building my base. It took some farming and a lot of time, but I wanted an actual real base this time. And finally, my turtle actually laid an egg while I was building. This was going to be huge for my first kibble production, but I needed to get the task of this base out of the way. I couldn't get distracted because if I don't do it now, I'd be living in a trash can. I can't even lie. I never finished bases, so this was going to be one of those rare times where I actually did finish my base. I set up a bit of a composting area and more crops to start growing, getting an egg for my moss chops as well, putting us at 2 eggs now. During one of my farming runs, I noticed some crystal right across from my base. So yeah, I went all the way across the map for no reason like a bozo. My farming was upped with metal tools I had made from my benches, giving me faster gathering output. I ended up taming a mating pair of dodos, so them eggs would be popping. Then I knocked out an alpha pelagornis, so I'd have a pending flyer once my crops grew and I could make some kibble. I finished farming what I needed, then I got back to the base. I popped the chickens in their chicken coop, I continued the base build, and after a few days of housekeeping, I was done. Well, kind of, but hey, what can I say? Now look, Nobody, absolutely nobody, can say Steph Lyon doesn't build bases. You see this? You see? Yeah, that's a base! Finally, at the start of day 5, the base was fully finished, and to be honest, I was proud of all of this. I had a real base, not some box or foundations with 2 walls, so I gave myself a pat on the back, and now it was time to get myself some alpha blood and tame my first alpha. Getting the blood wasn't too hard. And I used it to make myself some kibble with my newly grown raw carrots and set off to tame my bird. It had woken up by the time I got there, but it kinda kept its KO food, so when I knocked it out again, it was basically ready to go. Our first alpha tame, not too shabby. I fought a turtle for some keratin. I risked passing a demonic bee to find myself a female alpha, but I found nothing. I just did the sketchiest move ever for no reason. Upset, I went back to the base, but on my way, I found a female alpha Lysho to tame. My goals were all achieved now. I was progressing pretty smoothly. This was my best ever start in a 100 days challenge, and I was pretty excited. I set up an Oviraptor that I had tamed. I put it in a cage, put it on wander so our egg production would go up. I saddled up my Pelagornis and set off. We needed a combat alpha, so I wanted to set out before dawn. I searched for ages and ages, but nothing. After not finding a combat dino, I went back to the base to make more kibble and some more tranks with the blood I got from killing some apex dodos. Then I remembered, now that I have a bird, I could actually showcase my build. So yeah, that's my house. It's pretty cool, right? I upgraded my gear, made some alpha arrows and kibble, and set out to find myself a tame. I came across a low-level female pteranodon, so I decided to tame her as it would be a faster bird and it's a chance for more alpha eggs. I ended up taming an alpha dodo as well with my last kibble. This had to work out so I could move to the apex tier, so this dodo better start laying some eggs. Steady progression, this was going good. Now we just needed the eggs, like that's all we needed were eggs. And to welcome me back to the base, our Lysho laid an alpha egg. For once, my Ark fortunes were good, too good. I went out to get some alpha hide for my PT saddle because I needed to upgrade to my new flyer. I found no better flyers or combat dinos. I was getting a little bit upset about this, it's been a few days now. So I farmed some hide, and after some searching, I ended up taming another alpha dodo just to up my egg production. When I traveled back to base, I arrived to 2 more alpha eggs. I imparted my new dodo, then I imparted 2 of my babies, but then by mistake, I had 2 babies, then suddenly I had 1 baby. I don't even know what happened, but oh well. I crafted up the PT saddle, and now I was fast. Still squishy, but fast. I went more inland to see if anything interesting was spawned. Another search, but nothing was found. I did see a few new spawns that were nice, but they were way out of my league, so I just returned to base. I was going to focus on getting myself more kibble and stocking up on tranks. I needed to be ready, just in case something did spawn. While out exploring, after I had gone for an obsidian run, I found an alpha carno. A low level, but boy, I was tempted. And it got the better of me. Yeah, I tamed the carno. Using my advanced spear chucking techniques, I killed a few creatures nearby for blood and hide. Then got back to base and crafted my alpha carno saddle. I killed some baby dodos and used the prime meat to make myself some kibble. I had seen an apex carno earlier on a different island, so I then set off to tame that apex carno back on that island. The tame was actually super easy. Then I had an apex damage dealer. Nothing special, and it had no saddle, but that was going to be the next grind. Getting alpha blood and hide would be crucial to upgrade my gear and weapons. At the end of day 8, I found the craziest clutch tame ever. A 145 Alpha Rex. Then I realized this was just Ark teasing me. The Rex started fighting an Earth Bronto and it got dispatched immediately. Like I literally sat there and watched it with my own 2 eyes. It was disappointing. But then every disappointment is a blessing. So I used this opportunity to snatch myself some alpha hide before continuing my search for a good tame and apex hide. After a while, I ran into some more apex dinos. They were fighting, and using my super sneak points, I stole myself more hide. I was amazed at how good I was at doing this. Like I was actually going so close to death and I wasn't getting attacked. It was pretty weird. I finally went back to base and crafted myself an Apex Carno saddle. I could try take on some stronger enemies now. Farming Apex blood and hide was going to be the main goal of this, and with my newly crafted Apex kibble, I was ready to set out. I found a decent bow in a drop, which changed the trajectory of my journey. I searched and searched, till I almost gave up, but then I got sidetracked taming myself an Apex Pteranodon, which actually helped me stumble onto a dead Kariknos. I had Poly now. I could make myself an SCS terminal. If I was quick, this would quadruple my egg collection. On my way back, I also found a low-level Apex Rex. It didn't need that much kibble, so I just had to do it. I just had to. I'm impulsive. I know, look, I'm impulsive. I know, what can I say? I managed to also tame a female Apex Pteranodon. I spent quite a while throwing spears, but I think I lost my premium spear skills and I had to resort to baiting the PT to attack me. But this helped me get a mating pair of them, so I wasn't too mad, plus I had some kibble left. It was time to go to the island and do some work. After setting out dinos in my base, I realized I needed oil for my SCS terminal. So I set out not really knowing how or where to find oil on this map. I was playing on 4 Glar and I didn't really know the map like the back of my hand. Then I came across a rock elemental, and if my memory served me well, I could potentially get oil from it, but I had to kill it. I decided, death or glory. And I went all in to kill the rock golem. But roughly 0.6 seconds in, I realized I was gonna get cooked. So I tried to run, but I kept getting stuck. I broke free and I plunged into the water. They couldn't swim, so I wanted them to actually sink into the abyss. The stupid piles of rubble, they're gonna sink. But by dumb luck, such freaking dumb luck, there was a damn Baslo in the water. A vanilla Baslo right beside me in the water. I don't know what I did to deserve this favor, but I took it. I killed the Baslo and got more oil than I'd ever need. Things kept going my way. I was actually getting really scared. Why were things going right? I farmed some more mats and crafted myself a fabricator. I would need this later on in this 100 days. Pearls were the last thing on my agenda, so I set out to the only spawn I knew to pick some up. I dropped down into the water and picked what I found. I needed more, but I was kind of hearing some sounds that I kind of didn't like, and being the scaredy cat that I am, I fled. I went back to base. I just couldn't do it, Back at the base, I just needed to wait for metal to smelt. My base was getting filled with dinos, and I was getting more confident out there. And now, it was day 10. It was time to upgrade to my grown Apex PT. I placed down our new terminal to streamline all our needs for poop and egg production. Luckily, our terminal placement just covered everywhere we needed, so I potted everything up. I grabbed some new armor, saddled up the PT, and headed out for an obsidian run. This PT had more weight than my alpha, and it was way faster. I got to Kaido Island and farmed, but there was this demonic wyvern who kept taunting me like I don't know what his problem was, and after a while he won. I got scared and I ran away, man. I wasn't taking any chances during this 100 days. I set all my farm to smelt, made some more armor, and set out to farm some blood and scout for a male Apex Rex. I killed a few Brontos and got a heap of blood, but found nothing worthy to tame. So heading back to base, I stocked up on kibble and set back out again. I came across a low-level breeding pair of Apex Aloes, but you guys know me, man. I'm stupid, so I tamed them. They were close to some dangerous creatures, so I had to risk it all. And these guys were low levels, but I still did it anyway. I took a few hits, but after a while, I managed to pull off the tames. One got attacked while it was unconscious, but I don't know if it lost some effectiveness, but now I had a fighting mating pair. I quickly set back out to base, feeling a bit happier now. I had something that was kind of okay to use to start breeding for the boss fight. But then that's when I saw it. Flying laps around my island, a demonic wyvern. This couldn't be happening. On day 10, how was I going to get rid of this? It was way faster than anything I had. How could I lure this away without dying? I was in trouble, as you can hear.
Nah. Oh, hell no. What? How did it spawn here? There's not even a spawn here. How do I fight this? How do I fight this? Hey yo, please fly. I'm gotta stay in render range. If I stay in render range, maybe he's gonna fly away. I gotta pot everything up because it's gonna be able to destroy my whole base. It can actually destroy my whole base. So this is actually just an L, man. And I thought I was doing good. I thought I just came back with 2 Allosauruses, a mating pair. I thought I was gonna be okay. This is not good. This is actually not good. Oh my god. I thought this area was safe. I've never seen one here before. Hey, no. GG's. Oh, bro. being paused. Everything has been paused. Okay, well, it's safe enough for now. I think I'll be okay. Great way to end off my, great way to start off day 10. Day 10, perfect. Like, 10 days in when we've made all this progress. And look at this. This is cool focus. Nah. Stop. Oh man, stay out of range. This is so bad. This is absolutely so bad. This is an actual server, so everything is still moving. Even if I can't see it, it's still moving.
After my little freak out, I popped out my aloes and let them breed. All while looking out for that wyvern. I was willing to sacrifice my Pelagornis or my raft, but I tried to do the raft first. I needed to get this thing away from the base.
Okay, from the time I hatched my eggs till now, bro has legit disappeared. Or is he just too high and I can't see him because I'm too low? Because he was right here when I was looking last time. Then he disappeared. Did he maybe drown? Maybe he could have drowned? But that's weird. Because the thing is, they're not even supposed to spawn out here. I know that for a fact. They shouldn't be spawning out here. Because it's really weird because I don't have admin privileges because this is obviously an online server. So I couldn't even delete it if I wanted to. You know what? I'm not complaining. I am not going to complain about that because that scared the dog out of me. I ain't going to lie to you. It scared the dog out of me. But yeah, it's gone. I'm just curious to where it went and how it just vanished. Because if it's still here and I don't know and then I keep playing and I put my creatures back out and then it just spawns again and goes Kamehameha on my base or hits me with its fireball jutsu, I'm so freaking screwed.
I returned to what I had planned, which was being green. I made myself a wind turbine and now power was in my base and it was all clean energy. Look at me helping the environment. After some breeding, I hatched up some baby Apex aloes. I needed an army for the Apex boss. Finding a better Apex Carnal or Apex Rex was on the agenda, but this was all down to luck. I made some more arrows and set off. My confidence was really growing now, so I started checking out more dangerous places. I came across some nice Apex Brontos, but the torpor they had was just crazy. I needed a lot more tranks to pull this off. So traveling around the map, using any opportunity to get some blood, I was filled up. Then I returned to base. Using my sacrificial baby dodos, I made more Apex kibble. I wanted the Bronto, so I had to be prepared. My Apex aloes were grown, so I mated them and hatched the eggs, giving me a nice amount that once grown could potentially do the Apex boss before day 15. I set out grabbing some obsidian before heading to the Bronto. When I arrived, I was hit with an Ark moment. A demonic Uruk elemental had spawned right on top of my Bronto. There was no way I could tame it now. I ended up settling for an Apex Racer and spent the rest of the time looking for a mating pair. I ended up crashing, which is great, but on my return, I was flying around the desert when I stumbled upon the biggest W, an Apex Giga. This was crazy. It was a low level, so its torpor wasn't high, it was like super minuscule, so I had to tame this. I got prepped for a Mission Impossible type tame, hanging off my PT with a grappling hook, and I started shooting. After a few shots, I had to chase it down, doing all sorts of maneuvers just to knock this thing out. Then it finally passed out. An alpha direwolf tried to take my shine, but I killed that guy and I tamed myself a Giga. This was going to be a powerhouse. I was super excited, and after looking around the desert a little bit more, I found myself a high-level Apex wolf. This would be my cave dino, so I tamed it. I almost killed myself in the process, but I managed to survive. I was unstoppable. I had a Giga, and my army back at base would almost be grown. On the way back to base though, I made a very disturbing discovery. I fought an Apex Bronto with my Giga, just to learn that although the Giga was strong, it acted as a vanilla Giga, taking a lot of damage and only getting tiny amounts of stats per level. This devastated me. I could only have a good Giga if it was imprinted. I basically wasted kibble, and at this point, sadness was the only feeling I had in my heart. I was so excited when I tamed it, so I just put that aside in my brain and went back to the base. I was out of all my tranks, so I needed more narco berries to make more, so I had to go saddle up my new tames, and I took the racer out for a berry farm. The Apex Racer was gathering a stack load of berries, and when I leveled it up, I remembered the awesome HP gain these guys got. Now, boosted by this guy's Apex tier, I was at 130,000 HP in no time. This was going to be my Apex boss mount because this had the most HP. I collected berries for my narcs and medi brews so I could make some potions as well. This took some time, crafting and gathering blood just to craft again. It was time to prep for the Apex boss, and saddles were needed. I cracked up some saddles for all my newly raised aloes, and I set out to level them one by one, using them to farm blood and hide. I had a plan that would help my weak dinos defeat the Apex boss, but they still needed some decent stats. I found a high HP Bronto and a mate for it, so during my leveling, I went back to base to get ready to tame it. My sacrificial PTs were almost grown. This would help me with levels too. I went out using my refined Mission Impossible Quetzal taming method and tamed up my Bronto, and the other one, bringing them back to base to mate. These Brontos would really add to the survivability. I set off for the desert as it was time for a dung beetle. Fertilizer was needed really fast, and at the rate we had poop coming in, it wasn't cutting it anymore. It took a while of scouting, but I finally found myself a dung beetle. I tamed it up, and the only thing now was to get back to base and set it up. Caged up and set on wander, I left the beetle to now focus on the boss fight ahead. I spent more time leveling up my aloes with babies and sacrificial apex creatures, and after a while, we were set. I was going to be riding my racer and supporting the aloes. I flew to land across from my base and set out all my dinos. Ready and confident, I summoned the boss. The battle was intense, but we were doing good damage. But that's when it hit me. I messed up. I messed up big time. I was supposed to bring an alpha dodo with us and build it a hut so we would get the alpha boost. This mistake cost me. My aloes started dying one by one. The boss was slashing at them. Soon it was just the racer. The boss's HP was still super high. I couldn't lose to this troll, so I fought a long and boring battle, popping potions like they were pills, potion after potion, until finally, after 15 minutes, I felled the boss. Finally we did it. We were now on the elemental tier, and I already had some essence. Now with the elemental kibble unlocked, I collected some farmed veggies and made myself my first elemental kibble. I was able to make some frost and hydro kibble. My first target was to be a frost Karakinos, so I set out to find a mid-level to tame. On my journey, I found some really nice volcanic Rexes, but I had no kibble. Maybe I should start farming for the kibble. Rexes would give me immense battle power. And that's kind of what I thought to myself, so I said, you know what, we're gonna do some Rexes. But first, I wanted to get that Karakinos, and after a while, I found one and easily tamed it up. It was a male, so now I needed a female, and after a full day of searching, I found none. Disappointed, I started heading back to the base, but stumbled across a drop, an Ascended Bow Blueprint. Oh, this was glorious. The odds of an Ascended was crazy, and I was like, yeah, buddy. I landed, opening the drop, and as I did, I saw a green light. I was like, wait, why is there a green light, gang? This is not a green drop. I was almost absolutely destroyed by a nature dodo. This was an intense moment, but I escaped with the BP. Everything paid off now. It was time to actually head back to base, and I meant this for real. I continued back out later, looking for a female crab, but again, nothing. I had no choice but to return to base and pull out my Apex Rex. I needed Frost Hide if I wanted to use my tamed crab. Frost Wyverns would be my best option to kill for hide, so I leveled up my Rex, healed it, and set out. Okay, now, let me explain something. I'm a little bit slow. It took me flying to the Frost Wyvern before I realized something. It's a Frost Wyvern. I have Frost Kibble. I can tame a Frost Wyvern. Once I realized this, it was like a galaxy exploded in my brain. I was like, wow, okay, Steph, come on. I quickly farmed and built a trap, and now I had purpose, glorious purpose. I built the trap and tested my PT. Could it survive and outpace this Frost Wyvern? I quickly learned that I couldn't do that on a PT. Devastated, I began to panic, almost dying, trying to get out. I survived by a hair. That's when I saw it. Down below, stuck between some trees, a female Frost Wyvern. It was a sitting duck, but it did have a Storm Griffin behind it. Could I actually tame this, or maybe both? Was this going to be my next lucky move? I landed on a sky platform, far away and shot. My bullets weren't reaching. Inching closer, I shot. Missed. Inching even closer, I shot. Boom, I made contact. This was short-lived because after it, I kept missing again. Being brave now, I decided to move even closer. Yet, I kept missing. Then I said, you know what? We're going all in. Death or glory. Moving to the piece of land, the wyvern was literally on. I started shooting. My blood was racing, but I was making progress. The griffin was also stuck, just my luck. A few minutes later, I turned around to check my back, just in case, you know. To my horror, a demonic griffin, inching closer and closer. How could this be? Not now. No. I was so close to getting this wyvern knocked out. I was panicking, but the wyvern was almost knocked. I stayed focused and knocked the wyvern, but the griffin, it wouldn't let me near. Looking back, but losing sight of the demonic, I started with the storm griffin shooting it, constantly checking my back until it was knocked out. Running over, I dropped the kibble in the wyvern, but it didn't instantly tame. What was going on? Its hunger had only dropped enough for one kibble. Time was of the essence. I hid in a corner, and finally the wyvern ate the kibble. I jumped on its back. I killed the griffin. I didn't even want to tame it at this point, and I just made my way away. I ran. We had a frost wyvern now. Faster, stronger, and boy did it pack a punch. I tested it out to find that the elemental resistances and bonuses were now in effect. My frost wyvern would destroy nature creatures, so this was going to be major. I returned to the base, killing some creatures I found on my way for some blood. I needed tranks for a male wyvern now. Getting back to base, wasting no time, I made narcs, arrows, and I set off again. I wanted to test my trap with my wyvern to make sure it would actually hold another wyvern. But on arrival, I had no choice but to live test it, as a wyvern was already waiting for me there. It wasn't working. The extra ramps I had placed on the trap made the height too low for these wyverns to get into. I had to lure the other wyvern away, giving myself some time to remove these ramps. The trap was working now, so I began trying to get it trapped. A few failed attempts, but finally I got it in and I gated it off. Now the rest was easy, launching arrows into it till the nighttime came around. Whilst it was knocked out, I waited around, letting the food drop, but this was a bad idea because while you're sitting there, it lets things render in and spawn in. A demonic wyvern had spawned right behind us. I haven't died yet, but I was willing to risk it all to make this tame happen. I tried my best to keep out of render range until finally my wyvern tamed up. I potted it and I ran skedaddled. A mating pair of freaking frost wyvern. This was epic. Most of the next few days was used to hatch my first frost wyvern eggs. I was literally hatching these eggs in the pits of hell. Like, look at this, man. Then while it grew, I went out to farm some blood and essence for each type of creature I could tame. Right now, nature was my best option as I was buffed against them. I raised and farmed and ran through the days quickly. I decided it was best to grow a bunch of wyverns, as it would aid me in getting high in levels if they were fully grown. I did the same thing with my Apex PTs. The blood farm was extending now. Then I went out for farming with my newly raised frost wyvern. This was clearly better than anything I had till date. Stronger, more mobile, but it was weak against volcanics. God damn. And on my farm run, I realized a new update was in place. The creatures now had status effects, and the bane to my frost wyvern's existence was the volcanic burn. But being careful, I killed a few frost and volcanic mobs to get some cores. On my way around, I noticed a few volcanic rexes. I needed to tame them now. It was day 20 and I needed rexes, so I got my new ascended bow made and grabbed some tranks. I made arrows and a few grapples and I set out. I grappled onto my triangle bird and started raining down arrows. It took a while, but the rex did pass out. Now, the problem was there was 3 other volcanic creatures around, and I had nothing to fight them with. This kibble feed was gonna be tricky. I grabbed the kibble from base and took my wyvern. I had to make this work somehow. Taking out the volcanic aloes was kind of easy, but I ended up playing chase with the rex, who was kind enough to forget I existed long enough for me to grab my knocked out volcanic rex. I deposited him back at the base and set out for a female. We needed this mating pair and we needed it pronto. But after a while, I finally found her. I went into autopilot, which almost lost it all. I took my eyes away from the screen for a second, and as I looked back, all I could see was a huge ball of fire. I dodged it as quickly as I could, and I managed to finish the KO. She was out, but I still had no kibble to tame her with. So I flew my new wyvern to the snow biome. I needed some frost essence. I found a mid-level frost wyvern and I decided to fight it. It was hitting hard, but nothing major. Then out of nowhere, multiple hit markers. I tried to fly up, but I was slowed, and before I could even try to escape, I was dead. My first death, 20 days with no incidents, and I died like this? So stupidly. How could I lose my perfect streak like this? I even spawned in the completely wrong place. But luckily I had my PT potted. I currently only had 1 fully grown frost wyvern. So with that death, I lost all my current battle power. It was devastating. I needed that frost essence badly. I can't lie, I was trying to complete this 100 days with like 0 deaths. So when I got to base, I was really sad, so I just kind of logged off to cheer up for a few hours, to also let my baby wyverns grow as well. But this is when it happened. I got back to the base to repair my gear. Then I noticed a clutch item. I had a frost core in my primal smithy. I immediately got happy. This was a full switch. I could tame and breed my volcanic Rexes now. I ran out. I jumped on my trusty PT, flew over and popped the kibble in her butt. Again, no diddy. I even did a little jump for joy because I was ecstatic. It was like a pure moment of sadness changed to happiness in minutes. Maybe all was not lost. It was time to sacrifice all the babies I was raising to level up my new wyvern. This process gave me a bunch of levels, getting my wyvern back into tip-top condition for the wild. I threw out my first Battle Rex baby. I rearranged some things at the base, placing some new appliances before heading off to find some hydro tames. I searched and searched to finally stumble across a mid-level Hydro Rex. Damn, it was trash. But it was good enough for me, baby! I tamed up the Rex, hanging from the sky, dropping darts into it. It was a female, so now I needed a male. I went around the map, and I did a small farm run on my way. Near Kaido Island, I found a nature Gigantopithecus. Ooh, one of my favorite dinos. I needed it. On my way back to base, I found a low-level male. But do I even need to say anything? Nah, I tamed his ass up, baby. Now I had a mating pair. I went back to base and started breeding. My army was looking stronger now. I now had kibble for the Gigantopithecus, so it was going to be my next target. Now, I had a bright idea. If I crafted a chainsaw and used it to get hide and blood, I'd yield way more. So I used some resources and I hoped for the best. I set out for the big monk and my tame was successful. It looked dope, it got the tiki mask and everything. And it also had a crazy move that healed all my dinos and the range was insane. This would be hella clutch for real. I wanted to gear up for the next boss, and the Frost Kaiju was my next target. I would use my volcanic Rexes. I needed to make Medi brews and a lot of potions to do this. I spent the day crafting and farming, waiting for the babies to grow, hatching, raising, brewing. I leveled my second volcanic Rex, feeling confident with my stats. I believed 2 would be enough for this boss fight. I grabbed my stuff and I set out. I arrived at a remote island to spawn the boss. This is when I realized I left my Alpha Dodo at the base and I had to go back and get it again. So now I was ready. I set up my coop to ensure I got the buff and I got ready to rumble. Spawning the boss, it was daunting. It landed on us, but we were holding strong. We were dropping its health steadily, but then I caught a glimpse of my second Rex's HP, and it was losing lots of HP very fast. It wasn't too long before it died. Its sacrifice was good though, as we almost knocked 1/5 of the boss's health. It was a long fight, healing and dropping my spitball. It took me time, but christened by the falling of snow, the boss fell. I had defeated my first kaiju. Volkanovski survived the fight, but 2 for the boss was actually a really good sign. So back at base, I set up my new farm for kaiju fruit. We were in the first quarter of the journey, so some housekeeping was in order. I set up a few things, got some tranks. At this point, I finally upgraded my armor set before heading out. I flew around to find some nature and storm tames, coming across another nature Gigantopithecus. I knocked it out quickly to continue my quest. It was a male, so now I had a mating pair of nature monks. Storm Rexes would be needed for the Hydro boss, which was coming down the line, so I was trying to find some high levels to tame. My search did take me to the desert. No luck yet on Storm Rexes. I started to think maybe just settle for some Storm Griffins. During this debate with myself, I saw something that blew my mind. A Frost Megapithecus boss. I needed this, like expeditiously. I found the high ground, anywhere for safety. I wasn't going to waste any time. I shot down at it. Luckily, it was fighting an Apex RG, giving me some time to shoot it. It began to flee after a while, but with no fear in my heart, I landed close by and I tranked it till it fell. I had a boss tier elemental dino. Double big ice monk. This was great. It had crazy HP already, and it was gendered. Maybe I could actually mate these creatures. I continued around for a Storm Rex, but only came across 2 absolutely donkey fart low levels that even I, the guy who tames anything, was disgusted by. And I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna tame those. I went back to the base, extremely curious to find out how strong my Megapithecus was. I saddled it up and I realized it was going to be a beast, especially against its counter element, nature. I could now do the nature and the volcanic bosses once my babies were grown. This was all gonna be a waiting game now. Taming and finding better stats were my next few days, while mentally preparing for the next 2 boss fights. I tamed a female crab, which was actually a nuisance. A godly crab spawned right beside her, making it treacherous to get even close. But while she was out, I went back to base, grabbed some kibble, and by the time I returned, and I couldn't actually believe it. A dumbass volcanic Rex was my new residing issue. I just threw caution to the wind, landing and standing there like a G till the crab ate the kibble. High key, I was like very scared. I started to farm for a trap. Although my taming with any means possible was mentally good and was working, I needed some sort of security to keep the creatures in the same area. And to achieve this, I needed a griffin. Being able to shoot off its back would make things a lot easier. Then I blue screened. Super high, right in the middle of the damn desert. My good luck was still kicking, baby, because I logged in and I was on the back of my wyvern. How this happened, I don't know. I was just happy. Another death mitigated. I searched and searched to only find low-level griffins, but as a wise man once said, cough cough me, just cause it ain't high, don't mean it can't fly. So I ended up setting my trap up and taming a low-level griffin, and after a little bit of convincing, I got it into my trap and knocked it out. Tamed up, I flew my new griffin back to base to continue my breeding and leveling for the boss fight. I spent the first half of day 30 leveling my dinos to get my boss team fit for action. I set out to do our first boss of the day, and I summoned the volcanic boss. The fight was actually super quick and easy. We were over-prepared, but it was worth it. This was a 100-day challenge, and I intended to get this done before 100 days. I came across a level 90 Hydrorex on my way to the base, and I gambled to see if I could raise my stat line, but after taming it, which was actually super easy with my new griffin, it ended up basically worse than my current stat line. I ventured to the desert where I found a level 80 griffin that would actually complete my mating pair, so I trapped it and I tamed it. The next few days after were spent cleaning up the bosses. They had to go, and I needed the seeds. They all fell one by one. My Dino Mega Meal combo team was hitting the spot, and I couldn't be stopped. The hardest fights were actually the Hydro and the Storm fights. The Storm being Hydro counters, and I had none of them tamed. But nonetheless, we still had all the seeds now. I headed back to base and I planted everything. Now, Bionic Tier was on the horizon, but we needed Tranks. I set up an actual proper blood farm. Yeah, let's just call it a blood farm. My plants were growing well. All I had to do was just knock out a bionic tame. Obviously, we needed a Rex, but our weaponry wasn't the best, so we had to find a modest level. I looked and looked, but only found super low level bionics. But luck struck on my adventure. I came across a red drop, no ring, but when I looked inside, a fabricated sniper rifle. 150% damage. This was monumental. We had literally hit the jackpot. I farmed up some charcoal from trees at the volcanic regions while scouting for a Rex, but found no Rex. This day was a bust for me, but we can't just give up. And I couldn't forget the Fabi clutch find. I decided to go farm flint for spark powder, and while farming, close to my island, I saw some purple balls in the air. It was a bionic, and it was a bionic Rex. But was it a palatable level? Something good enough for me? I just needed a mid-level, nothing crazy. I flew over, and yes, it was level 50. We hit the jackpot. Okay, I know it's trash, I know, but like, it's okay for me though. But it was still a pretty low level. I know, I cheap out, guys. I always do it. Look, at this point, you can't even say you don't know I'm gonna do it. I ran back to base, grinding my flint to make some spark powder. The new rifle would be making its debut. I had no Apex blood, so I had to sacrifice some of my day ones. RIP the gang, but you only live once. I collected up my Apex blood and I ran in, made some Apex narcotics. Guys, I'm actually slower than a snail because I didn't even need those. I needed ingots. I needed damn ingots, and I just killed my dinos for blood, and I wasted the blood. Now I have to kill more dinos. After a while, I finally made the bullets, but I was being impatient, so I left with the little that was already made and tried to KO the Rex. Obviously, not having enough tranks, I had to rush back to base and grab more. The Rex was almost out, but there was a pygmy Rex that was just annoying. It just kept going everywhere I was trying to go to. But I managed to knock out the Rex that I wanted, and I lured the pygmy away. I ran back to base, grabbing my now grown veggies and made up 2 kibble. Flying over on Big Freeze, I popped the kibble into the Rex and I made it just in time, as when I looked back, I saw the pygmies attack, destroying everywhere I was just standing beside. We did it. I was now on the Bionic tier, and I was on the Bionic tier with one of the strongest dinos from the tier. I decided that it was time to get back to my kaiju plans, so I needed an underwater mount for some sushi. I set out to look for something that was tameable without the sushi first. I headed to the swamp and decided to try taming a hydrobaryonyx. I knocked it out in a treacherous area. There was capros looking up my butt just to find out that it wasn't tameable yet. They were still broken, so I had to keep searching. I then decided to go big or go home and started tracking a 105 volcanic spino. This would do crazy damage, so I wouldn't have any issues trying to kill anything underwater. After taming it, it was time to set out. I waddled my way into the depths of the ocean. Then I realized the spinos don't have the sprint speed anymore. I was moving like a 50cc submarine, goddamn. But even though I was floating along, I managed to find some Pacific creatures to kill, and harvesting them by hand gave me the prime meat I needed. Once I felt like I had enough, I returned to the base and made some sushi. Now to knock out that level 130 shark that has been terrorizing me since day one. I flew back to check on it, only to realize it was an Atlantic shark. I was harvesting the wrong type of prime meat. See, normally I'd be pissed, but because it was like a side quest, getting kaiju sushi was going to help me out regardless, so all the sushi I had got was kind of okay. But now, I had to go back into the ocean with my slow-ass spino and try again to make sushi for the actual shark now. I made my venture back into the depths. And after doing my part to ruin the Ark's waters and the ecosystem, I went back to base to make my sushi. I knocked out the Atlantic Meg just to tame it up and realize that it was actually weak as heck. It was like super fast, but it was weak. It was torpedo fast, but it hit like a plastic duck. It was okay, because at this point, I had enough sushi to make my first kaiju once I got the other materials. I did a little bit of blood harvesting before going out to test my new Rex, Big Digit. What better test for him than a kaiju? So I went hunting and killing all the youngling kaiju I could find. First was the Hydro. I spent the next few days hunting down kaiju. I set out my kaiju eggs to try check what my progression was at. Almost there. I just needed a few more items. I realized that I didn't have a frost heart, so I changed to work towards a hydro kaiju as I had a few of those hearts. I spent some time flying around the map collecting what I needed. I ended up fighting another hydro kaiju, but I had to fight it from inside it. Your boy got his ass stuck inside the kaiju. I defeated it, but at what cost? I felt violated, and I didn't know what to do, man. I flew around and a nice level Storm Rex spawned, so I got it. And finally, near Kaido Island, I found a Bionic Rex that was actually already on par with my breed line, so I had to tame it. I knocked it out after some chasing. It had ran near a Celestial, so your boy had some work to do when I got back with the kibble. I arrived back with the kibble, but there was multiple creatures at my tame. I was actually annoyed because after I cleared the other dinos, the Celestial was just chilling, not attacking, not doing anything, just looking at my Bionic Rex. I grew some large balloons for balls, and I landed close by. I did some drive-bys, it didn't move. Was it glitched? I plotted, potting up my wyvern, getting ready to die if this went wrong. I walked over, still nothing. Popped in the kibble and tamed up the Rex. Instantly, the Ceratops started moving. Instantly, I took off. I ran, waiting for the big booms. Nothing happened. It was just following me. I ran, laughing like an absolute idiot. I couldn't believe this, forgetting where I was and that this is a dangerous overhaul mod. And that's when it happened. Like a torpedo, a Hydro Aloe ran up on me and started chomping down. Before I could react, I was dead. My second death because I was being an idiot. But at least I died laughing.
I'm actually so stupid. I'm so dumb.
I ended my day with my kaiju tame to weather my ego, because I was bruised a little bit. My ego was hurt. I died again. This was a second death. This shouldn't have happened. I upgraded my blood farm with Bionic Rexes now. It was time to upgrade my Tranks again. But I had an itch, just scratching away. I had a kaiju now, but it wasn't the one I wanted. My heart was set on the Frost Kaiju from the start, so I had to get it. I just needed a heart. Succumbing to my human desire for the perfect toy, I started looking for a frost kaiju to delete. I also needed a Storm Rex male, so maybe I could kill 2 birds with 1 hunting expedition. I spent days flying around, not coming across a frost kaiju. I did, however, stumble across a Storm Rex, but when I realized the level, even I, a modest tamer, couldn't stomach the thought of a level 10. Ain't no way, man. I did a few more laps and decided that my fixation on the frost kaiju would actually have to be benched for now. After harvesting some bionic blood to make some bullets, I found out that bionic blood would be a nuisance. I literally used a chainsaw on a whole-ass grown Rex just to get 70 blood. What in tarnation was this yield? I grabbed the bullets and I flew out. I had given up on my kaiju dreams, but they hadn't given up on me. Just to see that a kaiju had actually spawned on the neighboring island. This was a sign. I fought it, getting its heart before I continued on my way. Flying around hopelessly until I stumbled onto a Rex. It was a Storm Rex, and it was just right for me. I switched over to my Griffin to start to tame. When I returned to drop some kibble in its butt, the surrounding Rexes tried to protect it, but I was feeling safe because I had my big digits in a cryopod. I took care of them and tamed up my Rex. I was feeling really productive on this journey, and very soon after I came across more kaiju. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw a walking loot drop. I hadn't seen this before. I proceeded to attack it, and it dropped a blueprint. Using some keys that I had gotten earlier, I crafted and opened my chest to some nice little loot. It was very intriguing. I killed the volcanic kaiju, but had one question. Where was a frost kaiju? I just wanted a frost kaiju, please. I started collecting up more keys as I was destroying the local wildlife. Now finding another hydro kaiju. I needed a frost, but all I got was melted ice. Why was I getting hydro kaiju? I returned to the base and mated my Stormies. I had all the Rexes I wanted now. The bionic boss would stand... no chance. I started prepping my dinos for the next boss. They needed saddles and XP. This took a long time, but each dino was done and ready. I had used my Hydro Boss skull to make my own kaiju, so I had to go fight the Apex Boss and Hydro Boss again. The Apex Boss was nothing but a bug, but the Hydro Boss put everything into perspective, and I was kind of scared. The mod had undergone some changes and the bosses were way stronger. I mean, an elemental tiered boss put my Bionic Rex in a chokehold, getting me below half HP. Was my prep for the Bionic Boss enough? Should I get more dinos? I was already ready to go, just the scroll needed making. I couldn't let fear stop me. But I have to admit, my low stat line had me a little bit worried, but I believed in us. And after a bit of more farming, it was time. The scroll was crafted. I took off to my boss island, heart beating fast, but my mind was set. I started placing my Rexes, some of all the kinds, Bionic being the majority. I spawned the boss in and waited for it to materialize. Instantly we started shredding it, but we were losing bodies. Things were chaotic, but we were winning. But suddenly, one of my Rexes started moonwalking. Not like Michael Jackson moonwalking, but literally to the moon. It was literally floating type. I knew what this meant. I prayed it was just a big lag spike, but 30 seconds passed, no response. That's when I got kicked. My heart sunk. I scrambled to get back on the server, logging in, grabbing a Rex. I saddled it, killed some Rexes for levels, dropped my Wyvern and I flew off. The boss being active meant I couldn't land when I got there, so I pulled a high octane stunt, flying high, unpotting my Rex mid-air and potting my Wyvern, using my grapple to grapple onto the Rex while we were falling from the sky, landed on its back and mounted it just before we touched the water to cushion our fall. Well, that's what was supposed to happen. I was actually panicking, sweating like a beast, and I fumbled my whole epic play, and by the time I got to the island, the boss had stopped moving. They had won. At first I was happy, we didn't lose many dinos, but I realized something. I didn't have the kibbles I needed unlocked. I wasn't in range when it died, so I never got the engrams. Gutted. I would have to run all the bosses again just for the materials to craft a new scroll. This was gonna make me lose days. I got arked and it sucked, but challenges are meant to be conquered, and this challenge wasn't going to set me back. After a quick round of I got murder on my mind, I gathered my forces and set out to defeat each kaiju again. This time I would be faster, my bionic Rexes would shred the bosses, and this they did. Making the kaiju that were still hitting hard much easier, it was kind of nice to watch. I was so confident I decided to spawn in all the kaijus at once. This was cool until I crashed. I lagged out again. And another meaningless death. Again, I just kept dying for no reason. I respawned and potted up my extra Rexes at the fight. I would use one to ensure my own survival. I scaled it back down to just 2 kaiju at a time, but the buffed up kaiju were actually slapping me, forcing me to use potions. But at the end, I had all my skulls. All I needed now was some brass to make the bionic scroll. I crafted up the scroll, taking a conservative amount of bionic Rexes. This time I was prepped so I wouldn't die. I built myself a fallout shelter close to where I intended to summon the boss. I would watch the fight from my very own viewing station. I was set up, so I proceeded to spawn in the boss. I ran back to my station with high hopes, but as soon as I closed the door behind me, I was met with instant doom. I thought I was safe, but I wasn't. Another death. Panicking, I respawned as quickly as I could, but the boss was already dead. Again, no skull. Devastated, my second attempt failed. No kibbles unlocked and no skulls. This was becoming an issue, but I had a plan. I went out and I found more kaiju skulls and made my scroll again. I flew over to the boss island, and this time, my plan would be to put my big Freeze's life in the balance. I summoned the boss, flying far away so its attack wouldn't harm me. Its range was crazy, but I dodged the killing blow. Waiting until its HP was super low, I flew back in. 10 million, 6 million, I popped a heal to keep my dragon alive. Then I disconnected. God damn it, man. Again, this was starting to get on my nerves. It was now day 60. I had farmed up another bionic boss scroll. How was I being defeated like this? My new plan was to use a Rex of my own, but stay far away enough that I could actually dodge the insta-kill blow. The boss was summoned. I was running. Evading the first attack, I was still alive. I inched closer to it, testing to see if it would demolish me, but I was good. I gave some support to my other Rexes that were fighting. This was it, the third time. We were winning. I was alive. The boss got super low and I started moving, going forward gradually until it was in its last millions HP. Then I bolted towards it, still alive. My blood was rushing to my head at this point. The nerves, bro. Then it died. In the corner of the screen, I saw it. The skulls. We did it. After so many attempts, I survived to see it die. Now we had unlocked the demonic and celestial kibble. Things would be looking up for us now. It was time to get some demonic and celestial honey. This meant I had to face one of those treacherous bombing bees. I had an idea to try and make it easy on myself, but my idea wasn't foolproof, well, not yet anyway. But I was a man with hopes and a man with a plan. I set out with some structures to build myself a trap. We were doing this. I wanted a demonic queen bee, but a celestial was our first victim. It was fate. I built my trap nearby, just out of its reach, and once I was done, I started. I lured it towards the trap. My first attempt was a failure. I didn't position myself right, so I had to try again. This time it worked. She was heading right into the trap, and when she did, she was in there, trapped. Easy pickings. All I had to do now was rain down purple rain. And surprisingly, it didn't take too long before she was dead, and I was gifted my first celestial honey. I only got 2, so this was gonna be like a grind. I then found a demonic and celestial bee not too far from there. So I picked up my trap and built a smaller version of it and lured them in. Once I got both in, I shredded them with my Rex, and now I had enough celestial honey to make 2 kibble. I got back to base to store the honey, only to realize I needed blood, demonic blood. But the bee didn't give me any blood. I would have to go find and kill an actual demonic. I took off heading to the desert. Maybe I could trap a demonic like I did to the bees. It was worth a try. I found a bunch of demonic griffins, but their movements alone was enough for me to know that I couldn't trap them and transfer to my Rex without dying again. I continued on my way, and luck showed its head, giving me a celestial gigantoraptor near some platforms that were high enough for me to land on and unpod my Rex. I started raining down on it, but my luck ran out as my spyglass kinda showed me a demonic griffin was taking damage from my attack, so it started coming towards me in my direction. I couldn't fight one of those, so I ran, falling off the cliff, losing half my HP, but I managed to escape. Damn, for a second I thought we were gonna be lucky and get ourselves some celestial blood. I threw out my wyvern and potted the Rex, flying over to continue my search when I realized the demonic griffin had killed the Gigantoraptor, and the body was still there. The griffin for some odd reason was grounded. This was my chance and I had to go for it. With my balls tucked into my belly, from above I swooped down and I chomped on that damn bird and I did it. Celestial blood and lots of it. Damn, I'm good. I flew back to base to craft myself some demonic kibble. I saw a demonic bee on my way here and one kibble was all it needed to tame. With my kibble in hand, I set out for my bee tame. I had some bionic tranks which would help speed up the taming process. I built my trap high so I could actually lure it away from everything else it could aggro to. Using my griffin so I would be a little bit more agile in the air, I got the bee and I trapped it. The bee was shot and it was lured to the trap. My new trap variation was a little bit miscalculated, so the bee kind of ended up stuck on the outside of the trap, but this was okay, I could still shoot it. I laced it up with some bionic rounds, but Fabi's being so trash with durability, it broke too soon, leaving me with apex arrows on an ascended bow. Although it took more time, the bee still passed out. I ran over and shoved the kibble in its butt and waited for it to tame up. My first demonic, a queen bee. Immediately, I started flexing my newly gained power, killing everything in sight. I was unstoppable. Unless I had to catch you. This damn bee was slower than a snail. Moving felt like I wasn't even moving at all. I had to go back to base on my griffin, which I actually found out got a new buff in the update. Bro had a supersonic speed thing where he could like boost. It was kind of OP. This was a lot better for the griffin and made the griffin kind of OP all the way to endgame. Back at base, I realized that the bee worked like a vanilla bee and could be turned into a hive and produce some honey for you. But I needed demonic rare flowers, which needed demonic blood. But with my new killer bee, killing demonics and celestials would be a piece of cake. I went out in search of my first celestial victims. Before I left, I noticed that allegedly, I was actually kind of starving my dinos. They were all dying from like hunger. Some of them were even getting torpor and passing out from the hunger. I was like, bruh, I was sure I was feeding these guys. But before I was arrested, I went out for a meat run to make sure nothing died while I was out. Once everyone was sated and fed, I set out racing through the air with my griffin's new sonic boom. Although I was here for celestial blood, anything I saw was dying, let me not lie. I was feeling myself and I had all the power. I found a bunch of celestial thorny dragons in the sand dunes and started my killing spree, which took way longer than I expected. My killer bee was just missing all its shots, like where did his aim go? After I finally managed to wrap up the thorny dragons, I was able to chainsaw one, giving me the blood I needed for demonic kibble. But now I would need demonic blood. This would be hard, as a lot of the demonics were flyers, so I set off to search. Man, hunting demonics was much more of a chore than I had imagined, but I did find some demonic power swords near my island, but I was stricken. Do I kill it or tame it? The power sword would be better than my bee, but I needed kibble. The options had me confused. I ended up killing the power sword for some blood and used it to make some celestial kibble. I had to tame a celestial bee if I wanted this kibble to actually go far, as a bee would give me the power to make more honey, and that was my hardest battle right now. I picked up my old trap and placed it above a celestial bee that I found. I lured it up to the trap, but I was low on walls when building, but everything seemed okay. The bee was stuck. Nope, the bee was not stuck. It was just slow. It dropped its bankai and almost blasted me into oblivion. I managed to pull away. My health was barely clinging on, but it was okay. I popped a potion and it got gassed up again. I went back and added more walls. Now it was a working trap. It was finally trapped. After a few attempts and shooting began, at one point, all of a sudden, I got snaked by its bankai again, and I was sent moonwalking a few hundred meters. It didn't escape though, so I just got right back to being Rambo. I knocked up the bee and dropped in some kibble. I knocked out the bee and dropped in some kibble, goddamn. I now had a celestial, so demonic and celestial bees were now in my arsenal. On day 70, I actually stumbled across a demon. Literally, I'm not even joking. What even was this new boss? I had to defeat it before I could get back on track, so it was time to test my celestial bee out. I went back to base grabbing her, then sacrificing some aloes for some levels. And oh yeah, I got this sick red mutation on my frost wyvern. It's pretty cool, right? I headed back to this thing, my bee in hand. I didn't know if I could actually win or if I would be rewarded for winning. I just didn't know, but I had to see, you know? But I chased it down, slowly. But after roughly 30 minutes, I had given up hope on my bees. They were slow, they were ass, they couldn't hit Their moves were inaccurate. I didn't like them no more. I still had to defeat the boss, so I did so with my killer bee. And I was rewarded. I got a token that I never got before. This new boss is going to allow me to tame my own big ape boss and craft this bionic scroll. This was really weird and it was new. Back at the base, I made some of the rare flowers, putting them in my converted beehives, which gave me honey. Using this new honey, I crafted up more kibble. Now I had enough kibble to tame a few of each dino type, depending on what I wanted. I needed tranks, which meant I needed more blood. My bionic rexes were my only identified source of easy farming, so I tossed out a bunch of babies and let them grow. This was going to take a few days, so during that time I farmed up so that time didn't go to waste. During my farm runs, I found a bionic megatherium just strolling around. I tried to ignore it, I really did, but I couldn't. I went back to base, put away the farm, and grabbed some bionic kibble. Above the megatherium, and a few bullets later it was down. And by a few I mean a lot. I tamed it up, and boy was this thing cool, and funnily enough, it almost had better stats than my Rex build. Maybe bionic megatheriums were the way to go in this mod. My baby wyverns were now grown, so I leveled it up using sacrificial rexes and to get some blood for darts. I needed to get celestial and demonic tames now. I also wanted a male bionic mega, so I could actually let them get freaky and get some babies. I made more bionic kibble, grabbed my darts, and I set out. On my journey, I found a level 150 demonic parasaur. I needed that, like right now. It had a lot of torpor, so I went back to base to get more tranks. I wanted to make some celestial bullets, but I had no blood to waste, so I went hunting close by for some celestials. That's when I came across 2 demonic rock elementals. Now, did I want the parasaur or did I want these beasts? My heart was torn, but I chose the big boy decision. I wanted the golems. I tested one out with a bullet to see if I could actually knock it out with darts, and it worked. I had a new plan. Drop everything and farm some celestial blood for bullets. It was literally golem taming season, baby. Okay, now guys, look. I went out to turn my beehives into bees again so I could use them to farm some celestial blood. But as I broke my celestial beehive, it gave me a regular bee. I'm not even kidding, like what the hell? That meant I had no celestial honey being made, or no celestial or demonic tames to fight things with. This was bad, very bad. To make matters worse, the damn bee had 60 million HP. What the hell, man? I decided that I just had to take this L. There's nothing I could do. I would have to go tame that parasaur and use it as my fighter to collect more blood so I can make tranks. Yes, I would have to lose the kibble I had, but I would also have a good battle mount. I found it again and started shooting. The night grew darker, my ammo bag grew lighter, but finally it was down. I pumped it up with some kibble and it was my friend now. Although I had no more bullets or arrows, I had a strong mount. I went back to base and made a saddle. I could go farm some celestials now. In the desert, the celestials were plentiful, giving me a decent haul of blood. I knew at some point I'd have to go tame another celestial bee and demonic bee, but right now I had to put it in the back of my mind. I could still get demonic kibble and I had tranks to make. I even got a heap of demonic blood too. I made a bunch of celestial kibble back at the base, and as I went to craft bullets, I realized I had no steel. I needed to go kill a rock elemental to get more materials. It took a whole day, but finally I found a rock golem to kill. I smelted my ore and got back to making bullets. I had high hopes for these bullets because I used so much rare mats to make them. But you know, after putting a few rounds into the golem, oh baby, these tranks were tranquilizing, bro. The torpor was super high with just a few of them before I ran out of bullets, so I needed more of these. I was low-key addicted to that torpor again, god damn. I finally took down the behemoth, but now a new challenge arose. I needed 8 demonic kibble. But guys, you know, I'm a genius because when I got back to the base, I had enough materials to make the kibble, so it wasn't even a challenge. Now I had a few demonic tames. I felt ready for the demonic boss, and boy, I would definitely be winning. I took my new giant rock to farm some boss scrolls. I needed blood from demonics and celestials. I defeated a bunch of celestials and demonics with my new rock elemental, just to find out that it wasn't really that good. My Parasaur was actually better than it. It was actually just a hunk of junk, just big for nothing. I rounded up a few more kills on my way back to base, flying past a Celestial Pegasus. It had slipped my mind that I actually wanted a Pegasus. I had to get some kibble for that tame in the future. I crafted up my scrolls, but I low-key got cold feet. So to put my mind at ease, I tried to go back into my little kaiju crafting era again, finding multiple younglings to kill around the map. Some spawned side by side. I jumped down to unpod my Parasaur when suddenly a Tyler grabbed me. Boy, my heart stopped. It was a vanilla Tyler, so my Parasaur was able to attack it and kill it and save me. This kaiju killing phase took a while, but finally guys, in the frost biome, I found a frost kaiju and it had to die. This was it. I would get my frost titan. There was a Pegasus who decided to butt in and dropping meteor strikes on me, but I was still gonna kill this kaiju, and now I killed it and I also killed the Pegasus. I could get a frost kaiju now. I rounded up the rest of the materials I needed to summon the kaiju. Ice skull, then sushi, kibble, spawning my kaiju into KO. I know, to some of you guys, this was a waste of time. I didn't need to do this, and I was already so far ahead. But for me, I've wanted this frost kaiju from the very start of this journey. And through all the struggles trying to find one and tame it, I actually accomplished my goal. So it actually meant a lot to your boy. So it was day 80 now. Finally boss time. I had demonics ready, but was yet to tame celestials. I wanted to use each tier of dino for their own boss, so I would like to tackle the demonic boss with demonic tames and the celestial boss with the celestial tames. After the setup, I summoned the boss. Then this guy summoned his own boss team, but my squad was better. Then I disconnected. Guys, look, I was hurt. I didn't know what to do. Another dying death. Why?
Nah.
Oh my goodness.
Nah, this is just, it's actually ridiculous because I have nothing out, man.
I returned just in time to spawn and sit on my throne, watching the boss die, which gave me my skulls. So yes, I disconnected, but this was the most, bro, I had so much aura in that moment when I sat down, turned around and I looked at... I went out of my room to check my dinos and they all kind of seemed okay, but randomly, there, just sitting there randomly, was demonic Thylo, just chilling. I potted up my dinos and it started chasing me. I was shook. I ran, trying to unpod my griffin, but luckily for some reason it didn't use its Bankai. I took this as a peace offering from the Ark. This game is treacherous, but when I looked at it with my spyglass, it was level 500, but it said tameable. I was like, I like this peace offering a lot, Ark, keep giving me stuff like this. So I got to taming it. Its torpor was insane, 10.4 million. A level 500 boss summoned demonic didn't come around every day. I used up all of my ammunition, but I finally got it down. I bombed it back to base to grab kibble, and we had 5 in store, just exactly what I needed. I was so excited. This would change the whole trajectory of my last 20 days. For once, a good curveball thrown at me. I landed. I placed the kibble into the Thylo. It didn't eat. Maybe I should use a tame helper from the loot boss I got earlier. I used one. Still nothing. It was, in fact, not tameable. For once, I thought this game did something nice for me. Just this one time, I was wrong. Devastated, I just gave it a few punches. Then sadly, I had to fly back to the base. Even the map wept for me as the rain started on my 4-Glar map. Damn. I now set out to get another Celestial Bee. I needed the honey and I needed Celestial Tames, some 20 dragons and a Pegasus. I found a bee and this time I didn't even use a trap, but there was a Skion nearby that kept skiing his way over to me, no matter how far I lured the bee away. My tranks were doing enough torpor for me to knock the bee out in the air, but Skion, he needed to go. I went back to base, grabbed kibble and returned to fight Skion. I lured him away from my bee and took him out with ease. We now had another Queen Celestial Bee. See, what I did next was for science, don't judge me. I went back to base and I whipped up some Celestial Rare Flowers. I placed them in my Queen Hive. And now, just to see if it was an error that the last bee became a regular bee, after I made the honey, I unhived the bee and yeah, it came out a common bee again. Yeah, this was not an error, this was just a thing. So yeah, I wasted another bee, but with the honey I had made, I had enough to tame the next bee that I saw. Knowing this new information, they would all be left as hives. Now, I set out to firstly find the Celestial Pegasus. Finally, I could get my hands on a goddamn Pegasus. I found a level 150 and started the sky taming. It was fast, so I had to do like a hit and run mission, finally knocking it out above water. Everything was good until I put kibble in it, and the Colossus Thorny Dragon started hitting it, but luckily it ate the final kibble as it took the first hit. And as soon as the Pegasus got up, it opened up the sky, and that Thorny Dragon stood no chance. I got on my new Pegasus, trying it out, and boy was this nice. I had seen a Celestial Archie that I also wanted to tame, and when I tried to shoot it at something weird happened. I was underneath the Pegasus, not on its back, but I was literally being clutched by its hoofs. I tried to shoot at my target, but every time I shot, it missed. I literally wasted 2 mags before I decided it wasn't my crappy aim, it was just a Pegasus. I ended up taming the Archie from the back of my Griffin. But now I had 2 Celestials. The only one I really wanted now was the Thorny Dragon, which was the next on the hit list. I found a max level Thorny Dragon, and from some experimenting, figured out how to shoot from the back of my Pegasus. You couldn't shoot anywhere near the hoofs, you had to literally shoot straight down. A short exchange of bullets and some kibble butt shoving, and I had the Thorny Dragon tamed. I now had the Celestial team we needed for the next boss. It was day 85, the next boss day. I saddled and leveled my Celestials. We had a date with Destiny, and all I needed now was for them to be in top condition. I realized that my Thorny Dragon was actually making me shapeshift from human to giant, I was becoming huge whenever I got in its saddle. I arrived at the boss island to be reminded about my millions of torpor worth of tranks that I wasted. Stupid level 500 Thyla. I popped my dragon and killed the Thyla, getting some blood from it. At this point, I thought to myself, I don't want to be disconnected, so maybe I should use 1 Celestial, and I was already on the dragon, right? I summoned the boss, and the Celestial Hydra was magnificent, but stood no chance versus my Thorny Dragon, who made short work of it. I now had the Godly Kibble unlocked, but we needed a Celestial Bee for more honey, so I set out, and this was it, the final stretch. Once I tamed up the Celestial Bee, I made my honey, then my first Godly Kibble. I spent the rest of the day prepping my knockout equipment. Could I shoot a godly without getting grounded? I would soon find out. I was out for a few days and nothing. I did find a Swordmaster, which was actually more annoying than it was worth killing. I was intrigued by the fact that I kept saying I could tame my own bionic boss, and then finally, I found a godly Broodmother. Really, look, out of all the godlies and I got the Broodmother, I wanted a King Crab, but the only godly around was this Brood. Nevertheless, it was a godly, and I had tranks, and I had kibble, so now I just have to test it. Do I shoot this thing, and do I fall out of the sky? Well, I actually indeed did not fall out of the sky. It was actually a really easy KO process, which was nice. But I realized that I had no godly hide to make a godly saddle. I would have to find a godly that would give me hide, and there was only 2 that I knew of. This was gonna take days, but it had to be done. Their Broodmother passed out, then suddenly went into a headstand. Weird, but I was like, well, it's time for kibble feeding. I got off my tame, but I couldn't feed the Brood. Then I realized she had spawned hundreds of minions. It took me ages to kill them. They just kept coming and coming. When I finally finished killing them, it was 5 minutes. Then I realized the mesh of the Broodmother was janky, but I could walk on her head to get to her mouth. Here I got the pop-up for inventory and I shoved the kibble in, but nothing. The Brood wasn't taming. Her food was down significantly, but nothing. This was okay though, because I needed to find a godly tiger or trike for some godly hide. In the desert, I found a lovely tiger. Oh, it was beautiful. I was split between taming it and getting the hide. Man, I wanted to tame it. I knew what had to be done, landing and unpotting my Thorny Dragon. This was gonna be a rough fight. I attacked it. It retaliated and hit me for 500,000 damage. Holy hell. Then it died. Nah, I'm serious, I don't know what happened, it just instantly died. I'm so confused, and I got 57 hide, bro. I was so discombobulated. You know Ark, right? It's just a shambles. When I was looking for godlies, I found none. Nilch, 0. But now I had knocked one out. All the godlies came out to play, and in under literally 6 minutes, I found a godly trike. But now I had to kill this glorious creature for hide. The pain. Again, I killed it, but my stupid attack harvested it, leaving me with minimal hide collection. But it was enough, while I believed it was. Then I remembered something. I had Tame Helper from the loot boss. I flew back to the Broodmother to find some paranormal activity going on. She was levitating at least 20 meters off the ground. It was like she was pulling herself upwards. I had to fly up and jump on her head to place my Tame Helper in. It helped me tame her instantly, so back at the base now, I had enough to craft a saddle. I now had a godly Broodmother. Again, another dino that supersized me when I was riding it. I guess you gotta be god-sized to ride godlies. I spent a few days defeating all the bosses over again, so I could make a second godly scroll. Because I had an idea for my finale, the Steph Lyon special. I defeated the elementals easily, using their skills to then make the bionic scroll. Flying to Boss Island, I remembered that my Parasaur actually had a protection trait. Maybe this time, the special move would miss me and I wouldn't die. I imparted my Thorny Dragon and my protection Parasaur. It said protection. You guys are looking at it with me, right? I spawned the boss in, and for safety, I put some distance between us. I started using my Bankai to do damage from afar. So far, so good. It knocked my Thorny Dragon away. Oh no, it was coming for me. I had protection, it was okay. Then I died. My dumbass protection did absolutely nothing. I needed rider protection, not just protection. This boss is a thorn in my side. I hate it. I died roughly 8 times trying to respawn on the boss island. And by the time I spawned at the base and made my way back with my Griffin, bombing my way there like a fighter jet, it had died and I got no skulls. My sacred plans to have a really cool last freaking battle ruined by this stupid boss. Bionic boss was at 5, I was at 0. GG Bionic boss, GG. I wanted to have one more godly tame. During this 100 days, the mod was being reworked heavily. New bosses, new modes, and most importantly, the current bosses were being boosted. So I wanted to be very prepared. We were so close to the end and I only had one shot at this. I found a godly trike on my travels. I had been looking for several days at this point. I needed hide, but I had no days left to spare and I couldn't find another trike or tiger to get some hide. I knocked it out, shooting from above, and using one of my last remaining tame helpers, we added one more godly to our arsenal, or so I believed. This was it. I felt ready. I returned to base and popped the trike, now to get my Broodmother so I could look at them side by side in all their glory. But that's when it hit me. Where was my Broodmother? Maybe I potted it. I checked all my storage containers. Nothing. My crafting stations? Nothing. Panic was setting in. I had checked everywhere, but there was nothing. I thought back. I never potted it. Like a ton of bricks. The realization hit me. I knew what just happened. Just a few days before the end, and the update had deleted my godly tame. Not only that, it was the only one with a saddle. I couldn't believe it. I needed to get enough hide for my trike, but there was no godlies on my map. I was so screwed. I searched and searched for a godly tame, just to try to get myself some hide. I was running out of time, skimming the edge of this 100 days challenge. I finally found another godly Broodmother, but I had no hide to make saddles. I had no time to waste, so I kept searching. In the snow, I found a tiger, a special Colossus pygmy tiger. It was a Colossus, but it was small. I had no time to look at this. I had to kill it, get some hide. I could make this trike saddle, so I needed this. I popped my Thorny Dragon a safe distance away and started my conquest for this tiger's hide. It was knocking me back, but I couldn't be stopped. Then I had a change of heart. I wanted to tame this thing. I had beaten it bloody with only 1 million HP left. I stopped attacking and whipped out my sniper. I couldn't see it. Its move was blocking my vision, and to make it worse, I was being flung around the map. But luckily, using the magnet icon to guide me, I found my mark, and after a few mags, it was unconscious. This wall saved me. It trapped me and gave me the right amount of time I needed just to get my shots off. I now had my second godly tame. Not the crowd, but it was something. There was still one issue. I had no godly hide. Should I have really tamed this creature? I looked, and still only Broodmother existed. Damn it, only one thing was in my mind now. I would have to kill one of my godly. The trike was stronger. I knew what had to be done. I reluctantly unclaimed my tiger. I gave it one last look. Its cute tiger face reminded me of my dog. I couldn't do it. I claimed it back up and set out. I had 3 days left. I would find another godly. All I needed to do was go on a killing spree. I killed walking through the map with one purpose: to cleanse. This was all I was for the next 10 minutes, a cleanser. I killed anything that could breathe. During a fight against a demonic rock elemental, I saw it. Above me, it's the rain of golden bankais. It was a godly. I quickly defeated it and ran to pot up my thorny dragon. I was hoping and praying, please be something that gives me hide. It was a trike. Oh, what was this? And was it the opposite gender of the trike I had back at the base? Maybe I could breed them. Maybe we could get a baby just before the end of this 100 days. I didn't have time. It would take 2 days to raise the baby and I would be cutting it too close. Luckily, it was a male, which I already had, so I could kill this with no thoughts at the back of my head. I didn't need to be told twice. The parasaur was unpotted. Potions were put in the inventories and I started shooting bombs. I knew it was serious. I was playing smart. The parasaur can't harvest meat, so I was using it to better my chance of preserving the dead body, and I did. I waited for the attacks to stop, jumping off and throwing out the chainsaw. I went crazy and boom, enough hide for 2 saddles. I raced, bombing it back to the base. I crafted 2 saddles, 1 for each tame. I also crafted the scroll. It was time. I was almost there. My last fight. After everything, I was ready to do this. After I saddled up both dinos, I decided to test my tiger out. He was fast, very fast, and his move hit like a truck, but it felt very extremely hard to aim. This wouldn't be the dino of choice for the battle ahead. I needed something that was easy to use and easy to aim with. Day 96. I had my godlies at the ready. Only 2, but it was enough. I was going to take on the final boss. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was locked in. I made sure I had everyone, my 2 godlies and potions. This godly potion was going to go a long way, so I was happy. With eyes like steel, I set off. If I could defeat this boss, I would have completed this challenge. I admired the map as I flew past. Forglar, the home of my successes and failures. It was almost time to say farewell. I landed in the desert, a bigger chunk of land to do this fight on because this boss was going to be huge. I popped my godly tames just to realize I had forgotten to level them up. How did I forget the most important thing I had to do? But it was okay. They have huge AoE attacks. I could just go on a killing spree and kill a bunch of wild dinos. I slaughtered everything I could, first with a trike, fighting a demonic wyvern who I grounded, making it much easier to kill, then a celestial featherlight who wanted to get into the fray. Everything was going very well. Then my screen suddenly got red. Oh no, what was happening? I looked at my HP. Damn, I was almost at 20%. I tried to run. I had no time. That's when the biggest setback yet happened. My godly trike, it died. I just lost one of my 2 godlies. How would I do this boss? I returned to try level up my tiger, and to also get my get back. We spun for our trike, killing the featherlight. This damn creature was doing roughly 5 million DPS per barrage, which was insane. They had been buffed and I didn't even realize. I fought some demonic griffins. This taught me a hard lesson. There was no way a single tiger was going to defeat the boss. I had to head back to the base. But guys, the craziest thing happened. As I flew past the sand cliffs, I heard it. Godly music. I looked and looked. Then it came into render. A level 150 godly tiger. Oh my. I started shooting expeditiously. This was the perfect timing. I knocked it out and literally teleported. I was moving so fast. I made up the godly kibble and grabbed the saddle and I was off. I got back and tamed the tiger. And when I got to my other one, I realized it was getting a mate boost. Then I enabled mating. One was like a normal one and the other one was like super huge, but yet they were mating. I could have babies, but time was ticking. This had to be the worst timing for a mating pair. I went out to level our new ally and ended up fighting a celestial thorny dragon. The fight was intense, making me forget something. The tiger I was on was pregnant. I saw a baby godly tiger running around and I was like, what the hell? Was it wild? That's impossible. Maybe it's a pygmy, but why is it running? Then a switch went on in my brain. It was my baby. I had to run away from the thorny dragon, lose aggro, then shoot the little sucker into a cryopod. This was enough. It was time to fight the boss. I had done everything I could. My heart was beating, but I felt ready. I had no choice but to fight it now, and I wasn't going to let it win. I summoned the godly nemesis. Instantly, I took a whopping 5 million damage. This was not going to be easy. Our attacks weren't doing much. He was just eating them like they were nothing. Then he stepped on me. No, literally, he stepped on me and I was trapped. I couldn't move. Under his heel, I was trying to do damage while he rained down bombs from the sky. I was fading. So were my potions. I kept needing potions too early. My second tiger, it died, leaving me on my own. Things were getting really bad. I realized my bites were actually slowing down my damage output. So I just started spamming my Bankai and it was working. His HP was draining faster. This was good. I could win this. It started going really well. Being stuck under his foot made every one of my Bankai attacks land perfectly, just draining its HP. Its minions were the biggest issues. Their burn attacks were doing me dirty, and I couldn't really focus on killing them, and I couldn't move. I got near death a few times, but I persevered. It was coming. The victory was almost here. 300 million. 200 million, 100 million, the home stretch. Then we did it. My 100 days finished early, day 97, incredible. The first time I've actually completed a 100-day challenge, and here was our champion, the godly tiger. I took a victory lap back to the base, running with pride in my heart. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed my journey through this 100 days. Let me know what mod you guys would want me to play next. I try to be as dramatic as I can. I want to start making more I think cinematic long version videos for Ark because I feel like there's so much I could do, but I have to train and practice, to get better. I felt like I did a bit too well in this mod because I had experience beforehand. So next time I want to do an overhaul for 100 days. I want to run it fresh. I want to do first time, first playthrough, like the way I did my Primal Fear 100 days. So yeah, I want everything to just be new to me so I have more upsets, more difficulty, But don't forget, if you like this video, like and subscribe and share this video, man. These are one of the harder videos for me to make because they take a lot of time, they take a lot of editing and content recording. So yeah, I hope you guys appreciate and support this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.